You know, from the presentation yesterday, I was faced with a real conundrum this morning. What should I wear? You know, and usually that doesn't bother me, but this time there were all sorts of threads going through my mind. If I wear my least favorite shoes and a tie, does that say I'm selling out? Usually that isn't a big problem. So I decided that to show that I was properly humbled, which is really hard to do, that I would wear my least comfortable shoes and a tie. This is also my least favorite tie. But that's another story. Okay, innovation, entrepreneurship, intrapreneurship, and the future. My pathway started in this room. This is a PDP-1, and the screen in the middle is the first time you hooked a great big computer to a video screen. Steve Russell from MIT wrote a program called Space War, and I was hooked. I loved it. I wanted my own, but it was $1 million computer, and I didn't have the bucks. So, later on, it turns out that I got a job at an amusement park. I'm a carny. I can actually guess your age, weight, and occupation. So watch it. And I understood the economics of the coin-operated game business. It was totally chance, but at the time, I was the only person that worked on computers that had a video screen and was a carny. Who knew? So what happened was it was very easy for me to put those two ideas together because I understood the economics, I understood the technology, but the costs didn't work. So I filed it away, and one day the computer costs came way down, and I thought, I bet I can do it. And I did. And it was serendipity. I mean, I didn't really plan it. I had a lot of different ideas and things, and this was our first game. I molded this in a little scale model on my kitchen table out of modeling clay, and then we scaled it up. And this was our first brochure. I licensed it to a company. The girl in the photo was a topless dancer down the street. And that's a whole nother story. But what we want to do is, this was such a thing as too much innovation. Everybody loved my game, all my friends. The problem was, all my friends were engineers. Mm-hmm. It was too hard to play. It did great. I mean, and talk about false positives. We tested it in a bar next to Stanford University. It made huge money. All the Stanford students loved it. If you put the thing into a beer bar, nobody home. So, the next one, Pong. Any idiot could play Pong. And then we had another great opportunity here. It turned out that the average woman could beat the average man playing Pong. It was so liberating. I knew a 5'2" blonde, little hottie. She was making $50,000 Pong hustling. Because it was a great time. If you're in a bar and a girl wanted to play Pong, it was socially acceptable to ask a guy off the bar stool. It was ladies' choice every night in the bars of America. There were so many people that have said to me, Nolan, I met my husband or wife playing Pong. Thank you. Or you dirty rat, depending. Oh, just saying, I just wanted to point out. There was the other innovation there, which is the polka dot shirt. The polka dot shirt did not catch on, but it was my other, and this is my partner, and Al Alcorn, my first engineer, who was really a great guy, and then this other guy who was our finance guy who got fired under mysterious circumstances. Steve Jobs.
No one wants to know about that at all.
No. Steve Jobs and Wozniak worked for me. Steve was difficult, but we got to be good friends. And but he didn't, at that point in time, he didn't bathe, which during summers in California, that's a problem. And so I decided that I would put him on the night shift. And that worked because it was actually very good, because Wozniak was working full-time at Hewlett-Packard, but they were good friends. But since it was on the night shift, Wozniak had come over. So I basically hired 2 Steves for the price of 1. It was a great business deal. But anyway, the project that I assigned them was Breakout. And Breakout was one of those disruptive things where everybody in the company didn't want to produce Breakout, because ball and paddle games were kind of over at the time. Pong had sort of run its course and that sort of thing. And so Breakout was considered that. So I hired Steve, and the Wozniak put it out. I shouldn't tell this story, but I'm going to. Steve, I did a bonus program with Steve that if they hit a certain time frame that was pretty short and got fewer than a number of chips, I'd give him $5,000. He told Woz that he got a bonus of $500. And Woz was sitting in my kitchen about 10 or 15 years later. And we were talking. I said, "What did you guys do with the $5,000? Woz looked at me and said, "That son of a bitch did it." Anyway, that was the game. And it was great fun. It turned out to be a massively good game. It actually started the business in Japan when Nintendo knocked it off. But that's another story too. Jobs really created a wonderful homage to this statement. He really decided that simplicity was his watchword, and it turns out he was absolutely right. And so when we talk about disruption, and I loved some of the things that Scott said this morning, literally making things that are complex simple is a pathway to the future. Making things that are expensive affordable is a pathway to the future. There's another way. I'll get to this a little bit later. People always ask me about this. Yes, it did happen. I was offered a third of Apple for $50,000, and I did turn it down, and I do regret it. So there we have it. It's out. It's done. I wrote this book because everybody says the Steve Jobs and creativity is important. And they're looking for the next Steve Jobs, but the reality is most companies already have the next Steve Jobs working for them. Their business construct is the thing that's holding them back. And so what you want to be able to do is create a company that has a few spiky people in, maybe even some that don't bathe. And you want to say yes. The minute you have a company where you can stand around at the end of the day and sing Kumbaya, you're probably going to create really mediocre products. And that's really hard to figure that out, but it's true nonetheless. When I hire somebody, I look for intensity, passion, intensity, people that are alive. Did you know that half of the people in the world, some people say 90%, but I think it's about half, are already dead and they don't know it. They're just waiting to be buried. What you want to do is you want to hire a person that is alive. That doesn't seem strange, does it? But you know, if you hire a dead person, you don't get a lot of production out of it. So you got to make sure, and it's a gradation. Remember in The Princess Bride, where Billy Crystal was, whoever his figure was, he says, well, totally dead, he's not exactly 100% dead. And he was actually able to bring the prince back to life. That was a great movie, incidentally. Find passion. People who have passion can be educated to anything they want. Passion drives the world. And one of the questions that I have is, are you born with passion and you're just beaten out of it somewhere along the line? I've been looking to education, and there's no question that education drops your creativity. I think it also drives out your passion in many instances. And I think that one of our tests for the next, 20 years is how do we maintain passion for learning independent of what's going on in the rest of the world. I think we destroy human capital through the education process now more than we're helping it. Be open to the educated, non-credentialed. Right now, one of the easiest ways to get into American college is to be homeschooled, because homeschooled kids tend to be more productive and better college students. Now, what does that say? The typical homeschooled kid maybe is schooled for 2 or 3 hours a day. What's the difference? And so it's no surprise that these are just some of the people who are high school, college dropouts. Did you know that the guy who designed the 2600 was a high school dropout? One of the thing called the Atari, that was a high school dropout. One of the smartest engineers I knew, totally self-taught, because he had passion. Where do you get ideas? I think that trade shows are one of the best resources. If I were running a college, I would have a class that's called trade shows. And all you'd have to do is you'd have to go to trade show after trade show after trade show. And what that does is it gives you a glimpse of different industries. Whenever I go to Las Vegas or a major city, I go to the trade show that's there. And I walk the floor. I have this whole set of business cards that say that I'm the press, so I always get in for free. You can too. It's very cheap. You just go down and you get them printed. And sometime I'm from Reuters, sometimes I'm on the New York Times. It was like when I was single, I used to have business cards that said that I was a producer and a director from Warner Brothers. That's a whole other story.
I remember that story from the other night.
Yeah, I cheat. But, fake it till you make it. Anyway, conferences and meetups like this, these are really good, but there's some other ideas. We've talked about willing to fail, oops, done all that. What about the dice game? Here's the way you do it. You write down 11 things that you can accomplish part-time in a year. You then number them 2 through 12, and you throw the dice, and in that year, you have to do what the dice tells you. I've been doing this for 5 years, and it has fundamentally changed my life. Here's the problem. Most of us overthink things and self-edit. When the dice tells you to do something, then you have to do it because the dice tell you to. For example, Finding the Next Steve Jobs, that book, happened because the dice told me I had to write a book. Now, I'm dyslexic. That means, that I confuse God and dog all the time. But at the same time, which it means that I can't spell. In grammar, I think it's okay to change tenses several times in one paragraph. And so I would have never graduated from college if it hadn't been for girlfriends and et cetera, correcting my papers. So to me, thinking that I could write a book and get it published was stupid. But the dice told me to do it, so I started the pathway. You find out that I can actually get people to collaborate with me that actually know English. So, you don't have to do it. And I was a pretty good storyteller, and the book's done pretty well. So, it all started because of the damn dice. Now, the question is, what did the dice tell me this year? I'm working on an immersive play. I've never written a play before, but what is an immersive play? It's where you get a big warehouse, and instead of having the proscenium arch, you have the audience moving around in the warehouse with actors and actresses at various places doing the show. It's really cool. It turns out that the play that I'm doing is a combination of the Poseidon Adventure and 10 little Indians. So what we do is, the construct is we're in a big spaceship. An alien spaceship crashes into it. The aliens are shapeshifters, and they're killing us off one at a time. And we'll embed some actors into the audience and scare the hell out of people. I think it's going to be great. Or maybe not. Anyway, another way to get innovation is to mash concepts together. When two continents collide, that's where all the interest is. That's where the volcanoes and the earthquakes and all that happen. And so, ask yourself, what happens when a hamburger joint collides with a plumbing supply store? Well, that's a hard one. Ask yourself what happens when you put together a music video and a warehouse and you get an immersive play. I don't know. Mash concepts together, and often you can get some great things. I talked about trade shows, but really seriously do it. Extrapolate. Peter talks a lot about how the escalation. There are things that you cannot do with today's compute power, but will shortly. These are good ways of finding innovative solutions to things. And the last one is think toy. Why? Many concepts are perceived as toys for the rich. The automobile, the telephone, the airplane. It's because they haven't become necessary yet because they haven't gotten into hard use. So a lot of times if you start out with thinking toy, you can do some great designs. Would you consider this to be an active, useful member of the household or a toy? Right now it's a toy, but one little step and it'll become an active, useful member of the household. I can't imagine in 10 years not having a robot running around. If we don't, I'm going to build one. Read science fiction. Diamond Age talks about nanotechnology, talks about all kinds of weird things running around in your blood. It's racy in spots, so it'll keep you awake. And, but more than that, and you know, those of you who heard me riff on this before, but I have to repeat it. The curriculum in school today is aimed at allowing you to function well in 18th century England. No science fiction is in most of schools' curriculum, when in fact you should be as facile with the world of the future as you are with today. And, oh boy, am I out? I'm out of time. Okay, anyway, need to go to Burning Man, need to go to Google I/O, you need to go to Zeitgeist.
No, take your time, Nolan. Don't rush it too much, you know.
It's okay, well, I'll just go fast.
Go for the cherries, you know.
You definitely have to go to Comic-Con. Of course, the guy who did the blue outfit clearly doesn't have a life. But if you get to hang out with Superwoman, I guess it's okay. What's the future? Every successful. Let's talk about materials for a minute. Aerogels are lighter than air. Some of them are extremely strong, and they're going to change almost everything. Imagine a skyscraper that is so light that you have to tether it rather than put in supports. It's on our horizons. Biometallic strips, where you can extract energy from any temperature differential. Singularity, we did that with, we have all kinds of fun stuff here. Let's talk about the auto drive car for a minute. We all remember from the Total Recall, Johnny Cab. Johnny Cab was really irritating, but the Google car looks more like this. This would be kind of the environment. But here's the business opportunity for you. Once you take the driver out, then the world changes. All the cities will turn into parks. Everywhere there is a street will be a nice grassy thoroughfare, because cars don't have to be big and they don't have to see where they're going, so they can all be put into very cheap tunnels. And you say, well, that would be boring to be just going around a tunnel. No, but all the windows will become video screens. So now you can choose where you're going, i.e., you can drive down the streets of Melbourne at the turn of the century, or in 2050, or whatever the science fiction auteur creates. Or maybe you just want today to drive down the streets of Mars in a futuristic city. Or, better yet, you want to go past a gunfight. Or maybe you just want to pretend that you're up on the surface going along the street, because you'll be able to pipe that in through cameras, and so you'll think you're just in a hovercraft, even though you're below the ground. No sound, totally beautiful, no traffic jams. Because remember, the auto-drive car can go nose to tail with all the other cars. And so it expands the lane of traffic's capacity by a factor of 20. So just think that every street that we have is now 20 lanes instead of 1 or 2. No traffic jams. And here's the real problem. Mass transit generally costs about $2, $1.50 a mile. That's what a tram ticket, a ticket in New York. The cost of an auto-drive taxi is somewhere between 30 and 45 cents a mile. Everybody will be taking taxis. Nobody will take mass transit. Talk to the Minister of Transportation on that one, and I'd go a little nutty. I love that. robots running around. I tried it. I did a big smoky hole with my robotics project. I already talked about that. Micro stuff. These are little nano swimmers. I know you thought, your dirty minds thought something else. But these will actually swim around in your system. Genomes, da-da-da-da-da. Oh, this is fun. See these? Look pretty cool, huh? These are real. These are actual mushrooms that have pieces of firefly and jellyfish DNA spliced in them. And they charge up during the day and they glow all night. Within 5 years, most of the parks in the United States and elsewhere will be illuminated by the plant life. Isn't that fun? Here's the fun stuff. This stuff is 10 times more powerful than any material on a power to weight ratio, which allows us to do the space elevator. In which, with the space elevator, you can get a kilogram into space, 1/100,000th the cost. It just climbs up and down this cable. But the cable has to be 25,000 miles long, which weighs a lot. Anyway, then we have all this stuff so that you can do this, and this, and this, this. Virtual reality is really fun. What you don't realize is this room right now is populated by evil monkeys. You know they're there because whenever you put your headphones in your pocket, they come out all tangled up. Evil monkeys. And so, it's only through augmented reality that you can actually see them and get rid of them and put them back into their proper dimension, as you should. And so I just think that the use for augmented reality, like some of the things that Microsoft is working on, I mean, Minecraft, if you haven't played Minecraft, you have to. It is so cool. And talk about something being created by a single individual. It's incredible. And then, of course, some other wonderful things with the world and 3D printing. We talked about that. Let's talk about education real quickly, and then I'm going to close. Understand that education right now is so massively broken that if it doesn't heal itself very quickly, it will fail to exist. If you replaced college with the admissions process, it would predict the success of the people that go without them going there at all. People who are passionate today can get the best education in a third the time. Now, if you think that college is for delayed adolescence, yeah, you know, you can warehouse your kids there, but it costs too much money. And what really needs to be done, and I believe this absolutely, that the people who reinvent education in the world will do more to make the future happen than anybody else. We currently have some software that absolutely teaches 10 and sometimes 20 times faster than a classroom. Think about going for 4 years of high school, finish it in 6 months. That should be the metaphor for what we're doing. If Spock can do it, we should be able to do it here. Innovation is no longer an option. It's a necessity. Thank you very much.